this recap review, we're going to be covering both episodes 4 and 5 of Yellowjackets. And it's going to be a lot because so much happens within these two episodes. Starting with the past. Thais is really coming to that point where that whole sleepwalking thing, it's too much for her, and on Van's recommendation, she decides to start going to Lottie's prayer circles, and it strangely helps her. It helps her to the point where she's not sleepwalking as much, but unfortunately, it leads to Shauna feeling a bit abandoned because it was really only Shauna, Akila, Natalie, and also Taissa in terms of who wasn't part of the cult of Lottie. But now that Taissa has started to become part of that group, Shauna feels abandoned just as she's about to go into labor. And it couldn't be a worse time since Lottie, she's talking to the baby, she's starting to really invest in the baby, and that's making Shauna very uncomfortable, but what can she really do? She needs help to raise this kid, to keep it alive, and the majority of the group are now under Lottie's influence. And granted, Lottie's influence is still challenged and questionable, but more and more, it's hard to say that these ladies who all feel the need for some type of spiritualism in order to have some type of faith are willing to let go what Lottie's providing them. Case in point, Mari, who is probably one of Lottie's most devout followers, she decides to push Natalie and Lottie to have a competition in regards to who can find food in a means to try to bolster Lottie's position. Lottie just ends up with terrifying visions. Well, in present day, she gets a terrifying vision of Laura Lee. But as for in the past, she just sees Laura Lee at a mall as she almost dies of hypothermia. Meanwhile, Natalie, when she's out in the wilderness, she finds that white elk that she saw that was a weird vision in the last episode, and it's frozen in a lake. She tries with the others to get it out, but unfortunately, their hands slip and they physically slip on the ice, so it sinks to the bottom of the lake. But on a positive note, Javi is found by Taissa while she's having a moment, and while he creepily reveals to Ben that his friends said he shouldn't have come back, it does bring a certain amount of intrigue as to who these friends are. How are they keeping Javi alive? Were they related to the guy in the attic? Are they indigenous? So when it comes to the past, as usual, a lot is there that keeps things interesting. Heck, I could throw one more thing for you. Misty and Crystal, who we've seen are best friends at this point, Misty accidentally kills Crystal. Now, why is this? Well, in the process of becoming closer, they start revealing secrets, and Crystal's biggest secret is that her real name is Kristen, but she keeps it Crystal because it gave her a nickname that she really likes. And Misty in return reveals that she's the reason why they're still stuck out there since she broke the emergency transmitter for the plane. Crystal doesn't react well to this. Misty confronts her about possibly telling people. Crystal steps back a little bit too much, and next thing you know, she falls off a cliff and dies. Luckily for her though, and luckily for her meaning Misty, a snowstorm comes in between the snowstorm and also Shauna going to labor, Crystal becomes a bit of an afterthought for now. So while she doesn't get away with the questioning that's likely to come, at least for now, everybody's distracted. Now, in terms of modern times, we're going to first focus on Van and Taissa. And to break that storyline down between the two episodes, Taissa's alter ego pushes her to go out west to go see Van. And it seems that's because the alter ego really likes Van and is still romantically connected to her. Hence why the first chance it gets, it kisses Van. But as much as the alter ego in Van might be in a good place when it comes to actual Thais and Van. Totally different story. It seems Thaisa definitely in some way abandoned Van. It's just not clear how. And Van, since that abandonment, ended up in Pennsylvania renting VHS tapes and also VHS machines so people can watch them. The business is flailing. Van, seemingly either through her own pain and issues or through her mom having cancer and getting oxycodone, she's an addict. But with the alter ego seemingly wanting to bring all the Yellowjackets together and needing to get Van on board, it sought her out, is ready to bring her on board. And because Van seemingly has nothing else really going on in her life, she's deciding to go with the flow. Switching over to what's going on in Shauna's life, especially with the Adam murder case, she decides to stop being around the bush when it comes to Callie. And in order to perhaps get more honesty out of Callie in terms of her not sleeping over at her friend's house but doing something else, Shauna decides first step toward getting the truth and having a very honest family is just being honest about the blackmail and also the Adam killing thing. With that, Callie slowly but surely opens up about her seeing somebody and getting drunk with them, and then in episode 5 just outright revealing, hey, I blew your cover with a cop. I tried to redirect him by saying you were sleeping with Randy instead of with Adam. And in order to try to make that lie into the truth, Shauna and Jeff agree to put Shauna in a situation where it seems like she is having an affair with Randy. But because Randy's an idiot, instead of filling a condom full of his semen, instead he decides to fill it up with some kind of lotion. Which when Matt and Kevin try to investigate, see if Callie was telling the truth or not, Matt smells the condom, knows it's lotion, and with that, Kevin kind of jokes about Matt being exposed, but even with Matt being exposed, he seems to still want to try to use Callie to get some information to pin Shauna, and so it seems that saga has not ended. On the other end, when it comes to the Adam murder investigation, specifically Walter and Misty, Walter is at that point with Misty where you can see he's definitely caught feelings in some ways for her, but Misty, because of the whole crystal situation amongst other things, is very hesitant, and she rather just latch on to Natalie, who she thinks she has a solid relationship with, rather than give this guy a chance who not only wants to become her friend, but perhaps something more. But with Natalie rejecting her in front of Walter and telling her to go away because she's trying to expose Lottie, Misty is at a very vulnerable point, and with Walter confessing that he knows she lied about why she doesn't want the whole Adam thing to be done, and that he figures out that she probably killed him, maybe with her friends, maybe to protect her friends. Either way, with him discovering the truth, she decides to push him away, abandon whatever could be with him, and he doesn't fight it, he just drives off, leaving us to wonder, is this the last time we're going to see Walter, or is he going to come back with a vengeance? Either way, it seems Misty's plan now is to get into Lottie's cult to try to save Natalie since she thinks something is going on and she's been brainwashed. The truth is, though, Lottie hasn't brainwashed Natalie. Lottie's gone through her own thing with trying to figure out how to deal with these visions of Laura Lee and that are very horrific, dealing with what Travis is perhaps referencing that only Natalie can potentially answer. And with that, as much as Natalie is really annoying and even tries to expose her by saying that Lottie has everyone's personal information, which everybody already knew, she decides that instead of damning Natalie, she's going to give her the same kind of grace and patience she gives everyone else, and Natalie strangely takes to it. They have a session where she opens Natalie up to remembering when she nearly OD'd the last time she saw Travis, and that's when she talks about or exposes that she saw images of what supernatural, demonic, or occult thing was back in the past, and she believes they brought it over back with them to New Jersey. or in Lottie's case, New York. And with that, we see Natalie as a child, so it seems like, even though we know that OD wasn't the first time Natalie did drugs, it seems to be kind of the craw that maybe kept her in this weird loop of getting better, going back to drugs, maybe even trying to attempt suicide. And with seeing that child, or rather the teen version of Natalie, in Lottie's lap, while Lottie keeps seeing that antler being in her shadow, it makes you think that maybe Natalie has finally gotten to that point of being healed, yet Lottie is still suppressing whatever is keeping her from moving forward. The best highlight best deals with Natalie, and it's both in terms of understanding how adult Natalie should be seen, as well as seeing the evolution of her relationship with Lottie. Starting with the evolution with Lottie, in the past and the present, you see that Natalie comes to appreciate what Lottie's capable of and also what her place is. Lottie in the past gives people comfort, and I would say both in the past and present, though more so in the past, Lottie isn't sure exactly how she's giving it, but she's following her intuition in order to be what people need. And I would say in later times, Lottie's able to hone in a bit more on that and expand on the people she's able to help. And it brings her peace with her own mental and emotional issues. Now, as shown both past and present, Natalie has a lot of stuff going on. Her home life is complicated, and then when she's an adult, things are utterly unstable and she doesn't really have much of a safety net. And I think when you consider that, it helps you understand that as much as Juliette Lewis is a big name and you would think that she would be on par with Christina Ricci in terms of the show, it was never meant to be that way. Juliette Lewis as adult Natalie is supposed to be, for many characters, a catalyst. She's supposed to be a way of providing the characters an honest opinion or maybe an ear and pushing them to show their humanity or show a different side to themselves beyond what they usually give people in some kind of facade. I feel like with Misty we get that a lot, especially since Misty tries to be someone who's in control a lot, but because of this relationship she has with Natalie, it makes her vulnerable in a way that she seemingly has tried not to be for a very long time. With Lottie, I think it's the same way, since Lottie still, there's the perception with Lottie that when it comes to a lot of the cannibalism and the bad things that happened in the past, she was at the center of it. But the more we see Natalie, both past and present, interact with her, you kind of get pushed to question that. I mean, for one, the cannibalism was something triggered by Shauna in terms of eating Jackie. And who knows when it comes to murdering and killing people whether Lottie was really involved in that, or was that something that Misty mostly pushed since she's capable of that kind of violence. Now, another example would be Lisa. Juliette Lewis is a much more known name than the actress who plays Lisa, beyond the court case that Lisa's actress was in. And yet, when those two interacting, you see Juliette Lewis take on a supporting role and letting Lisa's actress really get to show off her talents. And overall, even with the whole Travis thing, whether you're talking about past and present, Natalie is overall a supporting actress who may have the look or may have the actresses who show themselves as potential of being leads, but in a strange way, it doesn't necessarily feel like they're constrained to be a supporting character, but instead their energy, their presence, charisma, and all that is just modified to push other people up rather than boost themselves. So the next highlight is the Callie versus Matt situation that's coming up, and that's because Callie is finally a character who, for some reason, I want to root for, and it's part of the reason I want to root for her is because if she succeeds, she takes down a guy like Matt, but if she fails, she sets up so many things. Like, you could easily imagine season 3 being a murder case against Shauna, potentially Misty, Taissa, and also Natalie. And when you consider all that we're building up to in the past, in terms of Shauna having a kid, the first cannibalism thing happening, you could easily imagine season 3 being about a court case where now we're starting to get to the point where they have to start talking about the more darker, seedy things that, for a lot of fans, was part of the drive of watching this show. And hopefully, we get, no pun intended, a taste of that this season rather than them kind of dragging it out, but who knows. But in terms of on the fence topics, that thought is kind of what's messing with Yellowjackets' second season. You can see the potential for so many awesome moments, but it seems like almost as soon as an idea or thought is introduced, a pin is put into it so that either they can introduce Adult Van, or they can start focusing on characters like Callie and try to build them up so that hopefully they can be part of whatever big is coming down the road. And don't get me wrong, I recognize this is a mystery show, so they have to build up to something, but I don't feel like we're giving enough little gifts or pops along the way to keep us engaged. Like, seeing Adult Van was not that big of a deal, especially because in the modern times, you get a whole full-ass press release saying that, hey, we've casted Adult Van, we cast Adult Lottie, so them coming on the show is not like a, oh my god type of thing. And then in terms of other storylines, like one of the prime examples would be Taissa. Before she even got into that plane crash, it was shown that her family has some type of relationship with the occult and supernatural, including that man with no face, who apparently was there when her grandmother died. Yet we haven't seen Taissa interact with her mother's side of the family at all to really explore what that is, and instead she had her incident with Simone, went out west to Van, so it seems like there's this whole storyline that, is waiting there, but instead we're taking a long way before we eventually touch upon it. And sometimes when you think about this show as a whole, as a series, instead of just focusing on a season or episode, it can often feel like we're doing a long way to get to the point, and it's increasingly getting frustrating. The last on the fence topic for me is when it comes to Misty's character, between Crystal dying and Walter's exit, I'm starting to feel like they are doing too much to make Misty into a sympathetic character, even though she does bad things. And I can see if it was the case of, things just slowly dissolve when it came to Misty, like in terms of her relationship with Walter, or else her relationship with Crystal, but because so many bad things just seem to happen to her abruptly, it just feels like they're just trying to trigger emotions rather than really allow her to kind of have ups and downs in a hills and valleys type of way. Overall, I think episode 4 and 5 of Yellowjackets shows the pitfalls of being an original production. You don't have a source material with long discussions about what worked and what didn't in order to kind of guide you in the process and where you should make modifications or not. And because of that, you're trying to figure out a way to keep fans on the hook, yet at the same time, like a lot of shows, figure out a way so that you can have as many seasons as possible so that you can get potentially syndication, people can get more money, and best of all, have a steady job from year to year. And I think even within season 2, we're starting to see the issues with that because fans, or maybe I'm just speaking for myself, I don't think we're consistently being rewarded for keeping on with the show, and as time goes on, that could become a problem, especially since this is a mystery show, and if the mystery isn't compelling from episode to episode, never mind season to season, people are going to fall off quickly. And with the way that Yellowjackets is going, I'm really hoping it doesn't end up like Servant from Apple TV Plus, where you just constantly are hoping, waiting for something good or noteworthy to happen that feels like a reward for sticking around, and yet ultimately you don't get that.